and either Dana or myself will read those off for Mr. Rich. And again, if you have any what if questions, don't ask them or save them until the end. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dana, and she will introduce our presenter.
Thank you, Nate, and good evening once again, everybody. I think Nate is correct that this is meeting number 2 or 200. I'm not sure which. It's a little confusing for us in the office, but it is meeting number 2 for softball from our centralized host perspective. Hope everybody's doing well and that your Monday was as well as a Monday can be. This evening, we do have our first of the regionally hosted meetings. And tonight's meeting will be about obstruction and interference, I believe. Is that correct, Stan?
Yeah, that is correct.
All right, good. Just making sure I'm not giving the topic for volleyball or something, so I appreciate that. Our presenter this evening is the Albuquerque softball group leader, and he's been a longtime softball umpire with the NMOA and with the Central Region. That individual is Mr. Stan Rich. So at this time, I will go ahead and turn it over to Stan, and thank you for presenting for us tonight, Stan.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. So tonight's topic is obstruction interference. And I've done this topic as a local one before, so I've kind of changed up my presentation a little bit and included some videos of some local official or of a local official to get to interpret the to help interpret the high school rules. So with that, if Nate could enable me to share my, oh, there we go. Nate's on it. So tonight's obstruction interference. Can everybody see that screen? Please say yes. Or thumbs up will even work even better. All right.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So we're going to go into the agenda tonight. Define obstruction and interference, and I want you guys to be interactive with this. I want you guys to tell me what you guys look for when you look for interference as your definition. Also, other types of obstruction interference. Delay, discuss what the signals are for obstruction and interference versus interference. And then dead ball, delay dead ball versus dead ball. We've got some case plays directly out of the case book and some video review. Hopefully I can get all this in within an hour. I appreciate it. So definitions. So when we talk about obstruction, interference, obstruction specifically is dealing with defensive players or defensive team members. Interference obviously is offensive interference. So as you can see here, defensive team. Now this is a definition. I've kind of condensed it down from the rule book definition, but these are the main points. Defensive team member hinders or impedes an offensive team member. It can be a batter. It can be the batter runner. It can be the runner going into or even hitting a pitched ball. Had this situation this past weekend where we had to call, and I'll get into it a little bit later, a catcher's interference on a pitched ball. The batter hit the glove as it's going through. And then, of course, on interference is the offensive team member impedes, hinders, confuses any defensive player, any defensive team member. So again, it could be that pop-up slide at second base where it hinders the throw going in. We've seen videos of, I saw a video over the weekend where a pitcher was coming off to try to fill the pop-up and just bowled over the batter runner going to first base. There was a lot of talk about that over the weekend. Just things like that, subtle things like that. Also yelling at a defensive team member as the runner goes by. Anything in the chat, Dana or Nate?
No, sir.
All right. So questions I ask myself when I'm interpreting, when do I have obstruction? First one, did the defensive team member hinder or impede an offensive team member, batter or runner? Again, it could be going into a base. It could be rounding a base. It could be that catcher. Did the defensive member do that? Second question I asked myself, did the defensive team member have the ball before hindering or impeding the batted runner? Now, or runner. Now, remember on the initial play, you cannot have obstruction, but the offensive team member must avoid contact with the defensive player making the initial play on the ball. So step in and reach, they came in over last couple of years, or actually 4 years ago, they changed it to where a defensive member could, if she bobbles it, if it's still within a step in a reach, you still can call interference on the batter, on the runner. But this is strictly obstruction. So did the defensive member have the ball? And the last question I ask is, was the defensive team member making the initial play on a batted ball? So those are the three questions I asked myself. If two of the three are yes, then I've got obstruction. And of course, if the defensive team member is making the initial play on the batted ball, that answer is no. We have, and the other two are yes, then we have obstruction. Moving right along here. So other types of obstructions is the fake tag. So we kind of go around this, but let's say there's a runner rounding second base, shortstop or second baseman is around the base. She taps her glove. That runner decides she has to slide because she hears something in the glove, thinking it's a ball. This is a form of obstruction. And Shane, you have a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
On your 2 out of 3, if they're making the initial play, that is the only one that needs to be a yes. They don't need to have the ball or anything else. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we mentioned fake tag. Don't see it a lot. At least I don't see it a lot of times, because we do a good job when we see it to let everybody know that it's there, but we need to be calling it as well. And it is a form of obstruction. So interference questions. Did the offensive team member illegally hinder, impede, hinder, or confuse the defensive team member? And then the second question is, did the offensive team member, runner, in this case, create malicious contact with any fielder, with or without the ball in or out of the baseline? Now, we say malicious contact on the offense, but it can also be on the defensive team member as well. A play a couple of years ago in Texas where the catcher decides to throw an elbow on a runner coming into home plate. Everybody calls obstruction, but that could be considered malicious contact on a defensive player. So, but this particular comment came right out of the rule book. So, and they did not mention the malicious contact on the defensive player, but on the offensive. And this would be on a slide going into second base. It could be a slide into home base where they try to take the catcher out. Remember, you have to rule of malicious. If these two questions are yes, then we've got interference. And we have a penalty phase that we'll get to. I want to ask, what do you think the penalty would be on this? But I'll get to that in a second. Other types of interferences could be equipment. Offensive team leaves equipment in the on deck circle or outside the dugout. We also have umpire interference. When will we have umpire interference? Anybody?
Steal
Running on the base path.
on the steal.
On the field, but where do we most commonly see it at?
Stepping into the runner's base path.
Okay, that's one, but specifically, I'm looking for around home plate. Where would we see it at home plate? Umpire's interference.
When a catcher's trying to make a throw back to first or whatever base and you're in the way.
Okay. So,
What I meant by steal,
pardon me?
throwing the ball.
Throwing the ball. Okay. So primarily we see it when the catcher's trying to make a play on a runner. Whether it be first, second, or third. For whatever reason, the umpire got too close. The catcher pops up, hits the umpire, and then tries to throw the ball. Whatever it is. We have to be cognizant of what the repercussions of that is. So, and then the last one is spectator interference. Go back. I want to go back and retouch on the umpire real quick. Is it a dead ball or a delayed dead ball if interference is called on the umpire on a throw trying to go to second base or first, second, or third base?
Delayed.
Okay. And when would you not use, okay, let me rephrase. When would you not use the delayed dead ball with the time signal? When would you not do that? Because there is an instance where you would actually let the play stand.
Oh,
If the runner's thrown out,
yeah,
if the runner's safe, then you do the interference.
And that's exactly right, Sam. If the runner is called out, you let the play stand and ignore the umpire interference. If the runner is ruled safe, you put her back at the base she started from, and it could be any of the bases, but you would have to put the runners back on the base that they last touched prior to the pitch. So does that make sense?
What if the runner that stole second base goes to third? Would you let it continue to play out
Are you talking about on an overthrow?
on umpire interference? The ball
Right, on
bounces
an
out.
umpire, but did the throw go? So did the
There was
throw?
no throw.
figure in- Huh?
There's no throw, and the runners thought they could get to third also.
Okay, so if you ruled umpire's interference on the throw to second, you would have to put her back at first base. Because once she's safe, okay, you kill it. Now you have to put all the runners back at the last base they touched.
Okay.
Okay. So delayed dead ball, primarily obstruction. When you're dealing with obstruction, you've got your left arm out. Do you hold it there until the play's over, or do you just signal obstruction, verbalize it, and then drop it, and then once the play's over, then go into awarding a base?
What are you asking, Stan? Are you asking?
Okay, Rick, what I'm asking is, so to let everybody know you've got obstruction, okay? Do you, once you've signaled it and verbalized it, do you drop it at that point and then let the play continue until the ball is dead?
You drop it once the runner's no longer protected.
Okay, yeah, there you go. So if runner's rounding first and she stops, would you protect her all the way to second base?
that just depends.
Okay, Dave, elaborate.
And if in my judgment, she's going to make second base without the obstruction, I'm going to turn around and hold it. But if my judgment, she's not going to make it and she's going back to first, there's no need for me to even call it.
Okay, but you've got that fielder that's in the running lane. And what I mean by that is that runner is rounding first base. She rushes, she runs into the first baseman. And so you call obstruction on the first baseman. You know, you've let everybody know you had obstruction. So you've got to award base once the ball becomes dead. My question, would you award her first base or would you award her second base? And Dave, you said it depends if she's going continue on to second base. Yeah.
No, what it depends on is if in my judgment, I believe that she would have gotten to second base without the obstruction. If I believe she would have gotten to second base without the obstruction, I'd award her second base. If I don't believe that she would have gotten back to second base, then she goes back to first base.
Right. But you would still verbalize obstruction on the first baseman.
Oh yeah, I'm signaling and I'm calling it, and then what I do is afterwards.
Right. Okay. So that's what I was getting at. Do you hold it all the way until she reaches the base that she would have gotten to in your judgment? And if she goes beyond that, do you drop it, or do you hold it up there until she gets to the base? She, you know, let's say rounds first, goes to second, and goes all the way to third. You know, that's because I've seen umpires just hold it out there forever and never drop it. And what we're trying to do is once you have obstruction and verbalize it, go ahead and drop it and let the play continue. And then award bases once the ball becomes dead, if that's the case. So delayed dead ball would be obstruction, umpire's interference, and a fake tag is still a form of obstruction. So those are the ones that you would signal delayed dead ball on. The other one I didn't add on here, but and I should have, was catcher's interference is also a delayed dead ball. And we'll get into that one right now. So we have any type of interference, you kill it right away. It could be that pop-up slide at second base where the runner goes in, pops up, and then tries to interfere with or interferes with the throw going to first base. It could be a coach pushing a runner around third base or around first base. So any type of offensive interference, you kill it right away and you get the penalty, which the penalty for interference, anybody.
Out.
Okay, who's out?
The runner that interfered.
Okay. But so in deeper conversations with umpires about this, if you've got multiple runners on, and this is where the case is, who do you get out? If it's let's say it's a ground ball to shortstop, she throws to second, you've got an interference on the runner going to second base. Would you get the runner going to first base to complete the double play? Or would you get the runner closest to home?
Stan,
Yes.
if it is interference without a possible double play, the runner that interfered would be out. If it's an already retired runner that interferes, the runner closest to home is out.
But what if you only have one runner on base?
The runner that interfered will be called out.
Okay.
So if you only have a batter runner, if you have a single runner on base, and there was in your judgment, a possibility of a double play, you will then kill the play, call the interference out, and I am calling out runner R1 out if you judge there could have been a double play.
And see, these are the conversations you have at times with umpires in person or at a game site when you're going over, what could happen. Okay, pre-games are important on this kind of stuff. So always have that pre-game and try to discuss odd plays. All right, so we're going to go over some case reviews. What I would like is on each one of these is taken from the case book. So if you have your case book, they're random, so they're not order wise what you would see in the case book, but these are plays that were from the case book. So the first one is so you guys can read the scenario. In the chat box, put what you would call and why. So on these cases, the questions is what would be the ruling, obstruction and interference, and who makes that particular call as far as an umpire in a two-man system.
So Stan, there's a bunch of answers to that in the chat.
I'm going through it and I'm particularly concerned, or I want to ask the two people that think this is obstruction. Joseph, and I see another one is James Romero. Why would you say this is obstruction?
Well, in my eyes, it depends. It depends. I mean, she yelled it out and it startled her. So that's basically interference. I typed in obstruction as an accident. I can see why you asked, but it was an accident.
Okay.
It's really interference.
Okay. That's correct. It is interference, and it should be the umpire closest to the play. In this case, it would be the base umpire, because you would see this and then you would call it right away.
Well, I have a question with that.
Yeah.
But the base umpire, you have a hit ball, the base umpire is supposed to have the second runner, right?
Okay, so the base umpire always has the first play on the infield, whether it be the ruling on obstruction interference, the runner at first base, whatever the play is on the infield, the first play should always go to the base umpire. So this could throw this. Okay. And then if the plate umpire can hear this and see it, remember, he's also trailing the batter runner up the line, just to give the base umpire some help on that throw to first base, full foot, obstruction interference, was the runner in the baseline or the running lane. Plate umpire should be also watching that. If the throw goes in this case like it did to first base, then the plate umpire would have the second play, which would be the runner at third base. So that's in the mind. That's how I do it. That's how umpires that I trained them to do it this way. First play on the infield is always the base umpire, so that throw could go to third base. In that case, base umpire would have that play. Does that answer your question, Joseph?
Yeah, I'm kind of hard to understand it, but the thing is, I was taught not to trail if you have a runner on base and there was a hit.
So our mechanics book says that you always trail at least 10 feet up just to
Yeah.
help,
Yes, yes.
just to help.
Stan,
But if
Yeah.
there's a possible ball thrown over the first baseman, you probably have a possible play at home. So that's
Yeah.
why I wouldn't trail.
Stan,
Go ahead, Shane.
per NFHS umpire manual, you're not going to trail with a runner on second base. You're going to go to the holding zone.
Okay, so in the state of New Mexico, the NMOA has adopted their own umpire's manual. In that manual, two-man mechanics. I'd have to hold on just a second, guys.
Yeah, I don't have it yet until I get it.
So, 1 second. That's 3. So let's go ahead and go to the second play. Well, while I'm looking this up, again, what's your ruling? Who should make the call? And you can throw in dead ball or delayed dead ball. And then if you could help me out.
Help you with what? I'm sorry, Stan.
So if you could, if you mind, if you could let me know if things are in the chat on this second play.
Let's see, there's one that says no call as a throw is required for interference.
That is correct. So like I said, these are directly out of the case book. So if you've had a chance to look at the case book. So to go back to the runner on second base, yeah, the plate umpire actually would not trail, but you still need to keep an eye around first base if you can. So you do go to a holding zone between home and third, because you've got that secondary play at third. So I stand corrected.
Hey, Stan, you'd still at least try to extend it, first base extended and watch swipe tag, full foot.
Right.
You are correct, but we do the holding zone, but first baseline extended.
All right. Any other comments on play 2? All right. I'm going too fast. Just say slow down in the chat and we'll go through these. Play number 3.
What was the result on play number 2?
It's a no call because the catcher never throws the ball.
Okay.
All right. Anything on this one? Any comments?
There is one that says umpire interference. There's one that says nothing as we are considered dirt.
So I kind of wish I would have wrote down the page in my notes on this, but. Okay.
And then live ball, umpire interference, runner safe at third base.
Okay. Yep. So the first one, we're considered part of the field. If you, with that being said, though, a base runner who subsequently is tagged out, the umpire collides with the base runner. And it's tagged out, you know, again, delay dead ball, you award the runner third base. And then on the fielder, this would be obstruction.
Huh?
Okay, so upon covering a play at third base, the umpire collides with the base runner who is subsequently tagged out, or a fielder. Okay, this would be interference on the runner because she's trying to make a play on that runner. So, and then who's unable to make the play, and then the runner scores. You would have to rule interference on that. Did I hear Dave?
Wait, interference on who, Stan?
Interference on the fielder.
On the fielder or on the runner? Because this isn't the initial, the
But
shortstop.
wasn't it we're running into the umpire?
They're running into the umpire. They're not
Oh,
running.
yeah. Then you got umpire interference all the way around.
You've got nothing there. There's no interference at all, either on the umpire or on the runner.
Okay, so
I see two questions. The fielder interferes with the runner. That would be fielder interference. The
Okay,
first
that'd
one
be
is umpire.
It's an umpire.
No, it's umpire collides. In the first one, the umpire collides with a base runner. And in the second one, the umpire collides with a fielder. So, but you, in either case, you've got nothing.
yeah. And
Stan,
yeah,
if the umpire interferes with a batted ball before it has passed any fielder, it would be then considered interference.
right.
Any subsequent type of interference would be, in all essence, a no call.
Exactly.
Because we're dirt. We are the playing field.
Right. So,
Well,
like I said, I didn't write the page number. I found these in the case book. So I'm sorry, guys, to get the ruling, but that's why I wanted to get some discussion on these.
Yeah, in both of these cases, you've got nothing. There's
Yeah.
Mr. Carbajal, are you ready to throw out a coach and everyone in the stands on that first one? If you run into, it's not the runner running into you. You as the umpire run into a base runner, causing her to be tagged out.
There is
You're
no
saying
rule.
no call.
I'm telling you, there's no rule that covers that says that umpire is responsible for that. If she's subsequently tagged out, she's still out. And if you can show me in the rule book somewhere something that says something to the contrary, I'll be more than happy to listen to that. But I don't see that in the rule book at all.
Okay, I appreciate the help from Mr. Hernandez. Both A and B are not considered umpire interference. The ball remains live and all play stands.
Ruling 232-2.
Yep. So, go ahead, Joseph. Go ahead and unmute and ask.
No, I'm sorry. It was an accident. I pushed the wrong button. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Any other comments on this one?
Right, the person that asked, are we ready to throw out the coach and the fans? I would hope that when we screw something up, that we take the chewing and give the coach a very big berth to say what he's got to say without cussing us out and making it personal.
And as far as Rule 232.2 goes, all that does is define what interference is and says that there can be umpire interference, but in this case, there is not umpire interference.
Right. And
That's only a definition.
yeah. So, like I said, the ruling in the casebook says both A and B are not considered umpire interference. Based on the definition, the ball remains live and play stands. So the runner's out. And so we can discuss that more in questions and open. Let me get through these last two real quick, or last three real quick. What do you have here?
Play stands it is. The runner is only covered to second base.
Okay. Okay, so this one actually has several rule references in it.
Judgment, if you feel that the fake tag is obstruction, if you feel that the runner would have made third base without the obstruction, award third base. If you do not feel the runner would have made third base without the obstruction, then put it back at second base. Unless you were only having the obstruction prior to reaching second base.
Okay. So I'll read you the ruling and see if this makes sense. F6 is guilty of obstruction. Faking a tag is obstruction. And this goes to what Dave said. If in the judgment of the umpire, R1 would have reached third base, had she not been obstructed, she would be awarded her base. So she would be awarded third base. Otherwise, she's out. And you can find this in three different places that discusses it. 221, Rule 2, and this is the definition part of the rule. Rule 362, and then 843B. So in the judgment, if the fake tag causes her to get thrown out, you award her third base. So that's the ruling from in the rule book or in the case book. So here's another one. And what do you got here? That's
I
interesting.
drop my arm, let her go back to first base, and we play ball.
Call.
All right, so let's answer the first question here. B1 rounds first base on a base hit. After he's in B1's way, but B1 doesn't elect to try to go to second base because the ball already there. All right. So by definition, is this obstruction?
Yes, this is obstruction. You would make that call, but since she did not try for second base, you would not advance the runner.
That's you still have to call the obstruction because everybody sees B1, or in this case, F3 being in B1's way. Everybody sees it. And you've probably got contact one way or the other. So yeah, you need to rule obstruction on this one.
In this scenario, even if she tried to advance to second base and was subsequently called out because the ball was already there, I would not have her out. I would give her back to first base. Because you can't have an out between the two bases that you have an
Right.
obstruction.
But
But she would not, in my judgment, in this scenario, in my judgment, there's no way she would have made it to second. So I just put her back on first.
so the key here is the umpire's judgment. The umpire should call obstruction, but would not advance the runner if, in the umpire's judgment, the runner would not have reached second base had the obstruction not occurred. So
Yeah, the reason we want to signal and call the obstruction is a smart base runner or a smart coach is going to tell that runner, even though they would probably be put out at second, go. Because there's a chance they could be safe, and the worst thing that could happen to them was be brought back to first.
I would agree with that. But, you know, like I said, these are directly out of the case book. So the ruling, you know, you would still have to rule on the obstruction is what the main point is. You still have to roll on it. So here's the last play. And again, taken right out of the case book. You have two different scenarios here. What would be the ruling? Who makes the call? And would it be delayed dead ball or would you kill it right away?
In A, the runner is out. And then you got obstruction in B.
Anybody else?
Sounds correct to me.
Who makes the call though? Who rules this?
State umpire would rule it. We have an out. We're not going to call her safe. We're going to call dead ball. We have obstruction on the catcher. Runner awarded home.
That's correct. And that's in B, right, Shane?
Yes.
Okay. So just so you know, the ruling in A is the runner R1 is out. Okay, because the catcher has the ball and she's allowed to block the base. In this case, it's home plate. In B, the umpire would call obstruction signal delayed dead ball. The runner would be awarded the base in the umpire's judgment she would have received had there been no obstruction. So the point of this is to get you guys thinking. To me, it goes back to those 3 questions I asked about obstruction, the 2 questions I asked about interference, and I would apply them to each one of these plays. So now I'm going to go into some videos. Some of you guys have seen the videos, some of these videos already, but I've added a couple and see which ones you recognize. So this is a play at second base, and I'm going to try to stop it. Interference or obstruction here?
Can you play it again?
Sure. So you're going to get a couple of angles on this.
Obstruction on the
So,
shortstop. She doesn't have the ball.
okay, and that is the correct call. You have obstruction here on
She's
the
in-
shortstop.
Impeding the progress of the runner.
That's correct.
Yeah, she blocked her running past with her.
Okay. So on the, so everybody's in agreement, this is obstruction. Okay. Second play. Or this is the same play, different angle. So I want you guys to watch this one and see what you would have here. Let me go back just a couple of seconds to right there. Now, what
Obstruction.
do people have at this point?
Obstruction.
I have
Oh,
obstruction.
nothing at this point. She still has room.
No, she's blocking the catcher's blocking the plate. She's impeding that runner. She's blocking, hindering, impeding. She's going to cause that runner to go outside of her normal base path, so to speak. So I have obstruction on the
Okay.
catcher. She does not have the ball, and she's impeding the progress of
So
the runner.
Ball's right. I don't know if everybody can see my pointer, but the ball is right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A little bit of advanced umpiring here. Where should this plate umpire be? Do you think she's in a good position
Point
to
of
see
plate.
this?
Point of plate.
Point of plate. Now, with the ball coming through from
Third base
right
extended.
field. Third base, okay, very good.
Yep, I agree. Third base extended.
Okay.
Yes, move to third base extended.
After the point. Always remember, starting position now is going to be point of the plate. We no longer default to the batter's box or first base line extended. Everything should start at the point of the plate. And then let the players move you in that direction. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play and go on from there. As you can see, the umpire never signaled obstruction.
Is there any need for him to signal obstruction on a play like that? The runner came in, the runner was safe.
So hold on a second, let me go back.
I doubt that I would have signaled it.
It stands, she did signal it.
When did she?
Take a look at her, go back to it, take a look at her left arm. It looks like a safe call, actually got it extended, right there.
Okay,
Right, she brings that left arm up, she doesn't signal safe, she just signals
Okay.
with that left.
all right. Well,
I would have signaled a little earlier, though.
yeah,
I totally agree, it should have been a lot earlier.
yeah. So my thing is we would be verbalizing, we would be, okay. So, so right about here, the frame right about here, and sorry guys, I keep manipulating the video a little bit, but right about here is where I would probably have my left arm out. Even though the ball is way out here, that catcher is in an obstructing position right off the bat. So I would let this coach know, hey, I've got obstruction. I'd also let the catcher's coach know, hey, she's in a bad position. So the ruling here is obstruction. the run scores. So I'm gonna go. So the next play is I want you to look at it for two things and apply the high school rule to it. What would you have and why? So I'm gonna play it all the way through. So I'm gonna back it up and play it again.
That looks like malicious contact.
I got malicious too.
Is it
So-
malicious contact when she slides? It's a legal slide.
Okay, so I stepped it right here for a reason. Look at her.
Yeah, I looked at the hands and saw her going for the helmet or the face, and that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can agree with that picture right there, malicious.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what the ruling was on this, and from our rules, and so this is obviously a college play at LSU, and they said this is a violation of the NCAA collision rule, and but no ejection at this point. High school is a little bit different, guys. A lot of you guys said malicious contact. Would you have even thought about obstruction in this case?
Starts off that way.
Okay. So,
He's
Say
sitting
for
there
sure,
waiting with
because
the
my
ball.
picture doesn't show whether the catcher has the ball or not.
so the ball is right there. Right where my finger
Okay,
was.
so the catcher does not have the ball.
Does not have the ball.
Okay. Then you got
You definitely have to signal the obstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
As her slide might have been foot first had she been further back or with the ball ahead of time.
Okay, so let's go back a frame or two. So right as she's coming in, you see the ball right there, and then it disappears. I think the ball's actually behind the runner. There it is. So because she started to go down, I actually have talked to this umpire, and the reason why he ruled obstruction was because she had already started her slide. So would anybody care to comment on that from a high school rule perspective? Could you see obstruction if she started her slide?
In his position, it'd be kind of hard to judge.
Because she starts her slide about right now, another step and the ball's that far out, she has been hindered because she's being forced to slide early. The fact that she has her hands up, I don't know if her hands are up right there to protect herself or to bowl the catcher over. Normally, you don't have your hands in front when you bowl them over. You're using your shoulder. So that's
right
why
here.
50-50 on malicious.
Okay, so that's why we get, so half you guys say malicious on the runner. Can anybody beside me or Shane probably see obstruction here? Could you
Malicious
ever hold
is a judge.
obstruction?
In high school, though, doesn't malicious take precedence over obstruction?
If you rule it malicious and interference on the runner, so you can
Well,
have
not ruling
obstruction and
interference.
interference on the same rule, on the same play. Would everybody agree with that?
Interference, just malicious contact.
Okay, so right there, could you not have, so we see this umpire with obstruction, but my question is, right there, could you not have interference on the runner?
You couldn't have interference, but you could have malicious contact, which is interference.
Which is interference. Okay, so
Hey,
if you
Stan,
rule malicious, you obviously got the runner out, correct?
Stan,
Yeah,
can you back up the slide? Because I think you said that when she was about to start her slide, that the catcher did not have the ball. And looking at the slide before it progressed to that, I would say that the catcher had the ball as the
okay.
runner was
Let
coming
me see if
in.
I,
So I go malicious contact. Because if you look at the that she was first going to start her slide, look where the ball is. It's right behind the
okay,
runner. And that ball is a lot faster.
I gotta get back to that because there we go. So here we go.
So my point is the catcher actually had the ball right about the time that she started to.
If she doesn't have
Right
the
there.
ball,
The catcher had the ball.
if the catcher's set up in front of the plate without the ball, that
Right
is,
there.
that's
No,
obstruction, right?
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Look where the ball is. Stop. Okay, it's going too fast. Going too fast.
Yeah,
Michael,
I'm trying to
if
get
they
to
don't
where,
have the ball when they set up, it is obstruction. It's not about to
No.
receive the ball, they have to have the ball.
Yeah, and
And
old rule under Federation, it would be either in possession of or about to receive the ball. But they did away with that about to receive thing. She has to be in possession.
Right, NC,
no, I
the big thing with
I-
UCLA and Lisa Fernandez, where NC2A used to say that was not obstruction because she was about to receive the ball. That next year they changed it, and every level of softball from international, high school, college, USA, I don't know about you, Trip, that is obstruction in every one of them.
yeah, but you're changing what I'm saying. That's not what I am saying is that it is.
so you're
totally
saying right there, Mike.
I'm saying right there she has the ball. She has no ball in the frame right there. So in that particular case right there, catcher has the ball. Look where the runner's position is at. That she can block the plate right there. So when that
She was
runner comes
already,
in,
Michael, she was already blocking the plate before she ever got the ball. She doesn't have a right to block the plate with a runner if the ball is not in her glove.
no, well, it depends on the position of the runner. That's totally a judgment call. And in this particular slide right there, what I am looking at right there, she can block
Okay.
the plate. Looking at the runner's position, looking at the catcher's position, catcher has possession of the ball. At this point, she can block the plate right there.
That's a
So when the
judgment
runner
call.
comes
If you think she didn't alter her running whatsoever before she had the ball, then you are 100% right to call it.
That's what I am
Yeah.
saying.
Right, but we saw the ball even with the runner when the runner started her slide.
Right there,
That
there's
was,
no start. There's no start of a slide there. Catcher
yes,
has the ball.
she's already started. She's going head first. That's her slide. That's the start of it. She is now already stumbling. The umpire already has the left arm up because of
Okay,
that.
hold on, Shane. See that position that runner's in? Okay, let's stick her back 3 feet and that same exact position. So now you're telling me that if she started her slide 3 feet back,
back.
Right
From
there,
where she is right there.
watch as this comes in. Watch her feet. Watch her knees. Right. She doesn't have the ball yet. She's right there. She's already starting her slide. She's already going into it.
Well, she could start her slide 3 feet back also. It depends on the position of the ball.
No, it depends on where the catcher is set up, where the ball is at the time she starts her slide. It hinders, impedes. That is the definition of obstruction. Hinder or impede. She hindered her by making her start her slide earlier than she expected to.
I
She
have
has the ball. She has the ball in her possession.
The ball's in her possession right now, but she had already started her slide. That's the key. In baseball, even baseball, Major League Baseball has changed that collision rule and so on.
Well, this whole scenario is a judgment call. And
Yeah, it's a
my
judgment, and I agree with you. And if that's your judgment, go with it. But it's to prevent an injury and other things.
So so Shannon, Mike, the thing is, this is a good illustration of, at least in my opinion, this is why I included it in this video presentation, of the catcher's position prior to the ball getting to her and the runner being impeded. Like I said, the umpire had no qualms with the obstruction, right? With him calling obstruction. That he was not even looking, he said to me that in his mind, this was obstruction by rule. High school, college, any other federation, any other code, this is obstruction based on the definition. So, Bobby, you have the same thing, right?
Stan, I have a question. This is Gary Galindo.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Hey, and this is trying to get input from everybody who's out there.
Right.
As an old catcher, we were taught that you stand in front of the plate. Basically, you're blocking the plate the whole play.
Mm-hmm.
When it becomes apparent that there is no play at the plate, then you step out of the block. What I'm hearing everybody saying is, now you have to start outside of the blocking position, and you can't get into the blocking position until you have the ball. Well, when that ball's thrown directly at the plate, it's going to take you right into that path. So my question is, at what point, where along this line that the runner's running from third to home, does she now become impeded? Because some catchers are going to be set up there when she's 1 or 2 steps off of third base. Does that already make it an obstruction? And if you are calling obstruction at that point, and then she steps out of the way, do you change the call? This has confused me for a long time.
That's why I chose the topic, Gary.
Gary, that's a great question right there. Because that's where it becomes our judgment, unfortunately. And if you go to an advanced camp or any of those with softball, they are usually going to tell you she can be there without the ball, but as soon as that runner reacts and she doesn't have the ball, that's when you would have your obstruction. And even if she moves out, you still keep your obstruction.
Okay. So let's take this back to the high school rule of obstruction, okay? And in the definition, because in looking at the definition of obstruction, you have obstruction is the act of a defensive team member that hinders or impedes a batter's attempt to make contact with a pitch ball or that impedes the progress of a runner or batter runner who is legally running the bases. The caveat is unless the fielder is in possession of the ball, or is making the initial play on a batted ball. The act may be intentional or unintentional, physical or verbal. So, Gary, to answer your question, I would have to go back to the rule and say the catcher, even though she has the ball, has already impeded the runner because it caused her to slide early.
Well, but again, you're making the assumption she slid early. How do you know that's not where she regularly slides from?
Yeah.
The third baseman in this particular frame right here that you have is the cutoff player, is the cutoff man.
Right.
That third baseman was to have caught the ball, the catcher would still be where they're at. And that runner would still be sliding where they're at. And then the catcher just takes one step towards the middle of the diamond and she's no longer in the way. The ball never got there. Did she impede? That's where the girl slid from all the time.
Thank you. And that's my point.
We are assuming that she's sliding early because the catcher is blocking the play. I don't know that that's not her regular slide every single time.
To me, it's not even a slide, it's a collision.
It's a head first slide and it is a collision at the same time.
It is a head first slide that turns into a collision.
Right.
Because if she has head first slides like that and that catcher steps out of the way and there is no contact, there is no collision. It's just a head first slide. And there's nothing wrong with that.
All right, so we are
Okay.
past the hour.
All right.
So we'll need to wrap this up so we can get our next meeting started.
Okay.
Great discussion, though. I think that this is definitely a topic that we could probably bring up at a later date as well.
Okay. So guys, I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody who participated tonight. Great conversation, like Nate said. Sorry we ran over. This topic could go over, this could be a 2-hour topic. And sometimes it does turn into that at our local in-person meetings. So guys, great discussion. Thank you very much for letting me take part or be the presenter tonight. If you have any questions, please email them to Dana. For those people who have an email address, you can email them to me. I do have this as a separate video if you guys want it. And then if I could talk to Gary offline for just a minute, if it's possible.
Sure.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Nate.
Are you guys gonna, are you calling each other or do I need to stay on?
Stay on for a couple of minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks.
Nate, can you call me by chance?
Yeah.
Or if I call you, can you answer?
Yeah. Call me. Call me. You have my cell?
I can get it off of Arbor
Here,
if
I'll
it's
just
on
tell
there.
you real quick. 505.
Hold on. If Armando's call, I'll call him back. All right, 505.
5